Hey everybody, and welcome back to the next version, of final class in the due diligence seminar. You guys have been great students, and I appreciate all the time you've given me. The attendance has been fantastic, very consistent, and typically when people get on, they stay on for the full stretch. And I know last class was 2 hours and 7 minutes long. This one I hope will not take that long because this one, as much as everyone thinks this is what it's all about, this is actually the easiest part of the due diligence process. And let me kind of give you, let's review where we were, how it started, and where we are today. You know, as we always say, the due diligence process begins during the letter of intent stage. It's always been my initial question. Now, if you used the effective date for the contract to be the date that all of the Schedule 1 documents are received, then you're not going to have to write any check or any money until then. The earnest money deposit check will be written a few days after the effective date. So you've got all the way up to this point in the process and you haven't had to write a check yet. All right, and one of the things we're going to be talking about on this video has to do with the money portion of the due diligence. What's it going to cost you? How can you do this for the least amount of money possible? Now, once the effective date is set, the legal and the financial due diligence process will begin and they run concurrently. Okay, so once that trigger starts, that one date starts, then everything after that point pivots off of that effective date. But hold on, let me just, hold on, let me go back here. Now, if the property fails either one of these two reviews, you are going to kill the deal. If it fails the legal due diligence and if it fails the financial due diligence, you kill the deal. That's why we try to get this all done in the first 2 weeks of the inspection period, because we want to know right away, are we even going to bother going to the physical inspection portion? Because what you'll find is that physical inspection portion actually starts to cost you some money. And that's, if we don't have to go through that, then why bother spending that type of dough? All right. Now, hold on, let me do this again. Now, if it passes, though, then you're going to move on to the final phase of the due diligence process, which is the physical due diligence phase. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, does anyone have any questions about what we've covered so far in the first 3 videos and how it is going to relate where we are in the process right now? Because right now we are sitting in our home office and the property has passed the financial due diligence and it has passed the legal due diligence, and now we are about to make a move. Now we've got to get up out of our seat. And this is where things typically, the new investor thinks, well, this should have started, you know, way back when. And I say, no, hold your horses, and I'll show you why in just a moment. So let's start off. Okay, we have a question. Normally would have at least seen the property. Normally, would you have at least seen the property by now? Okay, let's talk about that. That's a great question. If you are located up here in Boston, the property is in Kentucky, and you've been looking at property down there in Kentucky, you've got a relationship with a broker, and they send you up this particular deal, and you said, yeah, this looks great, I'm going to send in an offer. I can tell you right now, just being an owner-operator myself, if I was selling a property, I would want the person to physically see the property before I accept their offer, because I want them to know exactly what this property is all about. I don't want to put the property under contract so that they come down 30 days later and say, whoa, this isn't exactly what I expected. Well, you should have come down to see the property in the first place. So I never want to put myself in that position. So as a seller, I want the buyer to see the property ahead of time. Now, that's not always going to be viable because some buyers have busy schedules and they can't get down there. So if the broker says, okay, we'll accept your offer, you don't have to see the property, okay, fine, do it. Why not? It's a freebie. It's a pass. You know, this one's on the house. So have you seen this property yet? I don't know. If the seller tells you got to see it before they accept your offer, then hey, you got to get down there and see it. But I'm trying to keep the business as inexpensive as we possibly can. I want you to understand that we can do a lot of this stuff without spending a dime. And if it means that you have to get in a plane down and see the property, well, make it worth your while and go to make sure you're going to see 10 properties while you're down there. Okay. All right. So after the LOI, let me see. The physical due diligence before or after the LOI, or boots on the ground prior to the LOI. No, everything that we're talking about here is after the LOI. Everything that we're talking about here is after the executed purchase and sale agreement. So we're not going to do a thing, and typically you won't even get onto the property until you've got a signed purchase and sale agreement. On one of the properties I had, my broker was pushing for the guy to get in there and start going through units, and we haven't even signed a purchase and sale agreement yet. And I said, broker, whoa, what are you talking about? I mean, why are you doing this? So no, the physical inspection, all the due diligence is described very, very clearly in the purchase and sale agreement, and it doesn't begin until we get that P&S signed. Okay. Hopefully that explains these questions. Great questions, and I appreciate them. So let's get started now on the physical due diligence, and when does that particular phase begin? All right. When you make the decision, when does it begin? It begins when you make the decision to go see the property. Now, what I mean by that is when you have made the decision that the property has passed the legal due diligence and the financial due diligence, and you've made the decision, I got to go see the property, this is when the physical inspection process begins. All right, notice how the other two started pretty much when you drafted the letter of intent, because we started setting deadlines in there. But the physical is, I want you to think about the physical inspection as not being as important as the other two phases, especially the financial due diligence. So this process only begins after the other two have succeeded. So here's what you're going to need. All right. Now let me run through this very quickly. These are your boots on the ground. I can't believe that the one of the students just already used this expression in his question. You need to set up your boots on the ground before you go. Now listen very carefully, because I'm going to talk a lot about these particular three bullets. The physical inspector. This is the person who's going to go and physically inspect your property. Now, what are you going to have him do? This is very, very important. Now, you can have this guy or woman go out and inspect every single unit and the whole entire building and the whole entire property. You can have him do that. And to do that, you are going to pay him typically on a per unit basis. All right. So let me tell you about my past experience. First property I ever purchased, 40-unit property, new kid on the block. I go out there and I hire a home inspector, because this was out in a secondary market. You didn't really have great inspectors, so the realtor recommended this home inspector. The guy thought he had died and gone to heaven, because he got to inspect 40 two-bedroom, two-bath units, and he got paid $40 per unit, and then he went around and he checked the whole entire building. The guy did a fantastic job, but I spent $40 per unit on that property. All right. The next property I purchased, I spent $25 per unit for that inspector. Guy gave me a great report, filled it out. It became part of my invest package, and that's how I got my physical inspection done on the property. The next property was a 186-unit property, and I spent $2,500. And all the inspector had to do was inspect the roof, the foundation, the HVAC, the boiler, the pool, and the walls, the siding. That's all I wanted him to do. I no longer wanted an inspector to go through every single unit. It was a waste of money and time. Going through every single unit was my responsibility. And I'm going to show you why as we go through this particular process. So by the end of the day, my physical inspector didn't go through every single unit. I didn't want to. My physical inspector looked at those things on a property that I don't have the expertise to look at, like the roof, like the foundation, like the chiller boiler, like the HVAC systems. I'm not qualified on those things. So I hired him for one flat rate to do the whole entire property for those particular features. That was it. And I took his report and it became part of my investor package. Well, who inspected every unit? Well, I did. Well, are you qualified? Absolutely. And I'll explain why. And I'm actually more qualified as an owner operator to review those units than the physical inspector was. And you might think that's a crazy statement, but you'll see why in just a moment. Now, the plumbing and the HVAC, you can have like one inspector do one thing, but you go out there and hire a plumbing inspector to do something else. And here's where I found that these plumbing inspectors are worth their weight in gold, because they have these telescopes and these cameras, and they can go down and they can check your pipes all the way out to the street using this technology, and they can give you a great report on what's going on with those pipes. Now, if you're looking at a 1980s construction property, those properties are at the end of their life cycle for their plumbing, and those things start to have a lot of things go wrong. Now, you'll see on one handout number 4, I believe it is, where I start giving some recommendations as to like apartment ratings and apartmentreviews.com and where to go for that. But in those reviews, one of the things you want to look at is what people are saying about the pipes. They let you know if their toilets get clogged all the time. They let you know if there's sewer backup on the property. They love talking about that type of stuff. And if you are buying a property and you find those types of comments in those website review systems pages, you're going to hire a plumbing inspector to go out there and figure out what's going on in that property. You don't want to buy that headache. That is one headache you don't want to have happen. I mean, I had a property where it seemed like every month the pipe from the building to the street kept bursting, kept breaking, and I had to spend $6,000. 3 months in a row, I had to spend $6,000 to fix those types of pipes. And it was just the age of the property. There was nothing you could do about it. And so, that's what I ended up spending my dough on. And now you get a plumbing inspector to get in there and take a look at the property. Now, the other thing is, and this is using the property management company. Remember, if you have to hire a property management company because the bank is going to tell you need it, or you just don't have the time or the expertise to do it on your own, then use the property management company to do your physical inspection. Some of these property management companies are very qualified. They have some highly qualified people on their staff to get out there and do a physical inspection of the property and give you a fantastic report. So when you're interviewing property management companies, ask them if they can do the physical inspection of the property. Now, if you're thinking about using the same property management company that's in force now, don't do this. You don't want to have, that's like the fox guarding the house. Get another property management company to go in there and take a look at it. Now, what you're doing here is you're getting comfortable with the property management company, but then also you say, listen, if I buy this property, you get the business, and I need you to do the physical inspection for free. Would you be willing to do that? And the answer is, yeah, absolutely. If I get the business, I'll go do an inspection for you. So they're just providing service ahead of time in anticipation of you giving them the business. All right? And that's another way that you can get a physical inspection done of the property, and it doesn't cost you a dime. So right now, up to this point, with the exception of the earnest money deposit, up to this point, the only thing that's happened is you've paid for a plane ticket in a hotel room, or maybe you haven't. Maybe the property is in your backyard. Okay. Now, those are the boots on the ground. That's what you're going to need. That's your team when you get down there. All right. Now, maybe you have a co-investor, a partner in this deal, and that person's going to be right there with you. That's great because that's going to help you out in the long run. But as far as the boots in the ground that you're going to need when you get there, this is who your team is going to be. Okay? Now, another thing I want you to do before you get down there is map this property out on Google Earth. If you don't have Google Earth on your computer, my gosh, you are you are not taking advantage of a great tool that exists out there. The Google Earth is fantastic. You can get down there with 3D street views, and it's like you're right there on the property. You get to see everything. You get to see what the neighborhood is like, and that's exactly why you're using Google Earth. You want to see who the competition is around you. You want to look at street signs. You want to really get a feel for what this property is like if you haven't been down there yet. So Google Earth, you must be looking at your properties. Every property you look at, go on Google Earth, type in the address, and let it fly you right over there. It is so cool. It is great stuff. So definitely take a look at that. Make sure that you use Google Earth like it's a regular tool in your dashboard. Now, how much should you spend on this process? I'm telling you right now, folks, I told you before, you can get out of the physical inspection process for nothing if you hire a property management company and you do a quid pro quo with them. I do this for you, you do this for me. And there's no money that changes hands. Remember the numbers that I gave you as a newbie, 40 bucks per unit, outrageous. Never do that again. 25 bucks per unit, not important. You don't need to do this. I am going to teach you by the end of this class that it's really you. It's really you that should be doing the physical inspection of every single unit. And you might be thinking to yourself, but I'm not qualified. Oh, yes, you are. Let me show you why in just a moment. Would you do a site visit before sending in a letter of intent and before doing an official physical inspection, especially if you're a local owner? Well, you're not going to be allowed before the LOI. It'd be very strange if the owner allows you to come on and do a physical inspection of the property, because that's kind of crossing the line a little bit. You need to have some type of a contractual relationship with the seller for that should happen. And the reason being is if you go in there and you break something, what recourse does he have against you? In the purchase and sale agreement, there's actually recourse in there where you're technically supposed to put up a bond when you go on the other guy's property in the event that you do some damage to the property, whether it's property or casualty or what have you. So you need to have that type of protection in place. The seller needs that type of protection in place before he should allow you on the property. Now, when you go on the property with broker, that's not a physical inspection. You know, that first time before you even send a letter of intent, that's not technically a physical inspection. I mean, we're talking about the physical inspection that takes place after you've reviewed all the financial information. So don't think of that little first cursory meeting on the property with the broker as being the physical inspection. That's not the case at all. We're talking about really lifting up the dress and find out what's underneath there. So now what do you do when you arrive? Okay, so you get in town. What's the first thing you do when the plane lands? You're going to go straight to that property. You don't go to the hotel. You don't go to not the Roy Rogers, the other Chick-fil-A, because we don't have any Chick-fil-A up here in New England. So I always go to a Chick-fil-A when down there. Listen, I apologize. Listen, it's great food. It's phenomenal, and it's cheap. So I go straight to the property. All right, so I can see it. They don't know I'm coming, and I'm not going to announce that I'm coming. I'm just going to get in that rental car and I'm going to drive straight to the property. Now, if it's nighttime, this is key. What you're going to do is, if it's nighttime, you're going to look to see what type of activity is going on that property during the nighttime. Think about it. You know, as my mother used to always say, I always come back to things my mother said, nothing good happens after 9 o'clock. All right? You're going to also check to see how many cars are in the parking lot at the nighttime. What you would expect is that your parking lot should be full because the people that work during the day are now home. The people that go to work every day to pay your rent are now home. If you walk on there late at night and you look around and there's no cars there, you start thinking to yourself, wait a minute, who works here? Who has cars? These people take public transportation, or they don't have cars. Who's working on this property? You want to look at those types of things. Now, the other thing is, are the parking lot lights lit? This might seem strange, but you're not going to find this out if you're just on the property during the day. So you're going to look around, and typically they'll like, lighting on the side of a building. And if they have an old ballast that's not working, that light's not going on. And let me tell you something, folks. I had one property where we didn't find this out until later. This is the experience talking when I give you this information. We didn't find this out until later. Most of the lights were out, and we had to hire a guy and cherry picker to go up and fix them. And it cost us a fortune just to get this guy to change the light bulbs. But we never went on the property at night before, so we didn't know they weren't turned on. Stupid us. That was our fault. All right. So these are the types of things that you want to look at when you get to the property, and if it's at nighttime. Now, what happens if you show up and it's daytime? You want to look to see what's the staff doing. Who's working? Who's walking the grounds? Do you see any units where the doors are open and there's a workman inside? Do you see anyone cleaning the grounds? Do you see any maintenance guys working in the shed, like the maintenance shack? Who's around the property? Now, the other question is, how many cars are in the parking lot? Whether it's daytime or nighttime, that number tells a story about what goes on that property. If during the day there are a lot of cars in the parking lot, well, people either work night shifts, second shifts, or they don't work at all. But you want to see fewer cars in the parking lot during the day than you do at night. That's a good customer. That's a customer that gets up and goes to work every day. Remember, customers are tenants. Think about them the same exact way. Now, the next thing are gang symbols. If you drive around during the day and you see gang symbols spray painted on the brick or on the walls of that particular property, kill the deal. Kill the deal. Trust me. You think I'm joking? I could not be more serious right now. If you see gang symbols spray painted on the walls of your property, kill the deal. Walk away. You don't want to have anything to do with that property. You are never going to change the makeup of that property. That property has been marked as a gang property, and you are not going to be able to change it. Listen, you think I'm crazy, you think I'm going off the rails here. I'm telling you like it is. If you see gang symbols, and what are gang symbols? I don't even know. I just know when I see them what they are. And they're these spray painted symbols, out in the open, that people who drive by, the Bloods and the Crips have their own symbol, the Bloods have their own symbol. You drive by and you see somebody up with a symbol, it's to let the other group know, don't mess around with this property. And it's to let you know, don't mess around with this property. And folks, like I said just a moment ago, this is experience speaking. I'm trying to save you from a whole lot of trouble. Remember, it's my job is to help you buy the property the right way. And part of buying it the right way is making sure you know what you're getting yourself into and teaching you to stay away from situations that you do not control. Okay? Gang symbols, walk away. Trust me on that one. Now, what do you do on the day of the inspection? On the day you flew in, you went to the hotel, you had a couple cocktails, feeling good, you're feeling fired up, you got the due diligence seminar notes, you guys are ready to rock and roll. That morning you wake up, you get in your rental car, and you drive to the property. What's the first thing you're going to do? First thing is you're going to inspect the competition. Now, if you look at that handout 4 with with the Handout 4 is a great. I did some radio show a while back, and the guy gave me the recording, and I had it transcribed. So Handout number 4 is a transcription of that radio show that I did about the due diligence process, and in it I clearly define exactly what you do to determine what the competition does. Now, here's how you first need to determine who your competition is. First thing you need to do is determine what the quality of the asset is that you are buying. Are you buying a C-class property? Are you buying a B-class property? Are you buying an A-class property? All right, a C-class property has different competition makeup than a Class A property. Class A residents own their own cars, so they can drive greater distances to find nice property to live in. So a Class A property, their competition is not going to be within a 1 mile radius of that property. It could be a 5 mile radius. So if you're looking at Class A property, you're going to start looking at your area when you're within 5 miles of that property. You want to start to get a feel for what the residents of that property have to drive through every day to get to their Class A property. And if it's beautiful, bucolic settings, well, okay, that's a good property. If they have to drive through war zones to get to that Class A property, that's not good. All right, now let me jump to the other side and say Class C residents don't own cars. Class C residents use public transportation. So if you're looking at a Class C property, you better make sure that your property has access to public transportation. The other thing about Class C property is you're not looking at competition that's 5 miles away. Class C residents live within a mile of their residence. They don't travel very far. So if you're looking at a Class C property, you're going to be looking at what the competition is doing within a mile of that property. So the Class C resident, he gets in there and he lives there, and you go up on the rent, he's going to move across the street. A Class A resident doesn't do that, but a Class C resident will move across the street if you go up on his rent. So that's what you're doing as you're driving to the property. You're keeping in mind what type of resident is your customer, and what their lifestyle is, and how they operate, and how that's going to impact who you have to compete with in that area. Okay? So within 1 to 3 miles, it always depends upon the quality of the asset. Make note of the names of all the apartments within a 3 mile radius and get their phone numbers, because you're going to be calling on them, and you're going to be doing searches on them, and you're going to be doing rentometer.com surveys on their units as well. Now, what's the neighborhood look like? Is it a pawn shop, check cashing, Walmart type neighborhood? You know what I mean by Walmart. Walmart's everywhere, but Walmart, when in an inner city, is typically the only place around. You're not going to see a Macy's or something in a C-class neighborhood. So, but check cashing places and car title loan places. Those are places that that you really have to be aware of. If that's what you're seeing, and the broker is trying to tell you that this property is a B-class property, that's baloney. You're not going to find those types of businesses in a B-class resident area or an A-class resident area. This is a typical example of where the broker has done the old bait switch on you, and they gave the line, oh, this is a C-class area, C-class property in a B area. And then you go and you look around and say, this isn't a B area, this is a C area. So the broker lied to you. So this is the type of thing is you want to look around. What's the neighborhood look like? All right, now, you've gone through the neighborhood. You've driven to the property. You've left your beautiful hotel downtown Dallas and wherever, and you've gone out to Fort Worth, and you're driving through there, and you've now got a feel for what the neighborhood is like. You know what you're dealing with here. Now you get to the property. What's the next thing you're going to do is you're going to inspect the grounds. Remember, you haven't even pulled into the office yet. These people are sitting in the office waiting for you and your team to arrive, and you're outside checking out the property. You're driving the grounds. And here's what you're going to be looking for. Parking lots, okay? I tell you, I shouldn't have gone to law school. I should have been a paver. Should have had my own paving company. Those guys make bank, as my kids call it. They make bank. I am shocked at how much they charge to redo a parking lot. It's amazing. You know, you're going to make note of the trash. These people knew you were coming. Is the place a pigsty, or did they clean it up? Look for potholes, because if they don't get fixed in the process of this negotiation, they are going to become your problem. And I'll tell you right now, if they don't get fixed, city board of health will come in and make the zoning commission, well, not the zoning, but the safety board will make you come in and fix that parking lot, and it's going to cost you when it should have cost the other guy. So make note of any potholes, any sewer cap issues. If this sewer cap has sunk and people hit that thing every day and they get damage to their car because in the parking lot the sewer cap is sunk, that needs to be fixed. These are the types of things you're looking for as you drive around the parking lot. Check out the dumpster pads. Are they kept clean? Are they contained? These are where the trash guy comes in once a week and he dumps, picks it up and empties everything. Now, it all depends upon what type of trash guy these people have. But what they do is they will not pick up stuff that's not in the dumpster. Are all the trash items being put in the dumpster? Do the people leave furniture out there that you have to pick up the furniture? So you want to keep an eye on these things. You want to make sure that they can be closed, because if they can't be closed, I'm telling you right now, the Board of Health comes around and they cite you for this stuff. The building code inspector comes around and he cites you for this stuff, and you get charged. So make sure all of this stuff works. Next, check out the roadside and the building signage. Okay. As you're approaching the property, you want to make sure that your curb appeal is good, is strong. You want to see what type of signs they have out front telling you that it's their property. You want to see if they have any type of, first month free signs. Look to see if your competition has any first month free signs. Then you're going to drive onto the property. Now, here's what this building signage is in reference to. If you're buying a property that has multiple buildings, every building has to be identified individually, and it has to be a very clear sign that the fire department can see when they pull on. If there isn't clear signage, you're going to be cited for it. So get it done ahead of time, or just expect that it's going to become your problem. All right? Now, check out the handicap parking signs. This is experience talking. It's unbelievable. These building inspector guys will get you everywhere they can. A handicap parking sign has to be a particular height in most jurisdictions. If it's below a certain height, so a car that pulls in can't see it, you're going to get cited. So make sure the signage that you're looking at meets all the code requirements. Now, check out the mini blinds. This is something that is amazing to me, but it happens all the time. You drive around a property, you look to see the mini blinds. If the mini blinds are all ripped apart, cats are notorious for ripping apart mini blinds. But if you see it's all ripped apart, why hasn't it been replaced? It's the tenant's responsibility to maintain the mini blinds in a nice condition, but it's the landlord's requirement to go around there and replace them and charge the tenant for the new mini blinds. All right, and that's typically how it goes. So if you drive around and you see a property where the mini blinds are destroyed, and it just makes the place, talk about bad curb appeal, it makes the place look like a dump. Now, that's a problem with the property, and you're going to make note of that as you're going through this physical inspection process. Okay, let's see. Now, here's the other thing that you're going to be looking at as you're driving on the property. This is the million-dollar question. Where does the water go? This may sound like, a crazy question, but I'm telling you right now, folks, water kills properties more than you can imagine. Nothing can kill a property faster than water, except for fire. But water will ruin you. With mold, with black mold, oh gosh, you just can't get rid of it. And I say that as I take a sip of my water. The elixir of life. Okay, so where does the water go? This is something you want to keep your eye on. Check the roofs. Are the roofs in good condition? When were they last replaced? Are some roofs replaced and some roofs not replaced? And remember, if you can't see, this is another reason why Google Earth is so good. You can go on Google Earth, and sometimes it's as old as 6 months old, but you can take a look at Google Earth and see if how many roofs are new and how many roofs are old. And so you want to make sure that the roofs are all in good condition. If they're not, then we're going to talk about this when it comes down to the end of the day, what we're going to do with all this information. Now, are the gutters visible and are they in good working order? Are the gutters attached to the building? Are they hanging off? Do all the gutters have downspouts that come down the side of the building and they're safely secured to the side of the building? What happens when the water comes down downspout? Where does it go? Does it have a French drain? Does it go right into the ground and it gets sent out away from the property, or does it just drop down right in the corner of the property? The whole idea behind drainage and what have you is to pull the water away from the building. In those rains, you want to pull that water away from the building so it doesn't pool up there, because that pooling can kill the property. Now, when the water comes off the roof, where does it go? Make sure you know these questions, because you're going to be looking at this as you go through the process. Now, check out the topography of the property. Is it on a hill? Now, if you're looking at property in Cincinnati is like the city of 7 hills. Everything is on a hill in Cincinnati. And you have to look to see what happens on that property when it rains. Where does the water go? And if it goes down the hill, and you have buildings down at the bottom of the hill, you got to know that when you go to see that building, you're going to walk into those bottom units, and you're going to smell. You're going to smell for mold, and I can guarantee you that if it's like any of these properties in Cincinnati, you're going to smell it, because that poor guy who got the downstairs unit at the bottom of the hill, when it rains, his place starts to stink, because that's what happens in these types of properties. Okay, so make sure you keep your eye on that. Where does the water go? Does it not go anywhere? Does it pool on the property? Does it pool on the parking lots? Even that is going to become a problem for you. So make sure you understand where the water goes. Now, that's the exterior. That's the drive-by. We haven't even gone in to meet the people yet. We haven't even walked into the units, into the leasing office to do our meet and greet and find out who they're going to be taking around. So we park our cars, we get out, and we go into the office. In the office will be the broker, will be the owner's representatives, will be the property manager, will be the manager of the property. Everybody's there, and everybody wants to keep their job. And so they treat you like gold, and they make you think that they can't do anything wrong. All right? Just go into the assumption everybody's going to lose their job there. Everybody's going to lose their job there when you buy the property. That's ultimately what's going to happen, but everybody's going to be really nice in this initial process. So you find out who's going to take you out for each one of the unit inspections, and then you find out who's going to be sitting in the office with your person. So in this particular process, it's really best to have 2 people on your team. One person is going to go out and look at the units, and another person who's going to stay inside and look at the files. All right? Now, these are 2 incredibly important tasks. So I don't want to relegate them or delegate them to another third party like a property management company. These 2 jobs should be done by you and a partner, or you alone, because nobody is going to look at these two particular tasks the same way you do, because you are the owner-operator. Everybody else is going to look at it entirely differently, but you're going to look at it the right way, and nobody else. Therefore, you need to do these tasks yourself. All right? So the property manager says, okay, who's coming out with me to look at all the units? And you raise your hand and say, I'll be the one going out to look at the units. Okay, great. So you and the property manager go out there and start looking at units. And she says, well, how many units would you like to look at? And you say, all of them. And she says, all of them? And you say, damn straight, sweetheart, we're looking at every single unit. Now, they knew you were coming. They knew you were coming, and they were told in the contract that they have to let you into every single unit. And the way that they do this legally is yesterday, they were supposed to paper property and post on everyone's door a notice that we're coming into your unit within 24 hours. Here's your 24-hour notice that we're going to come into your unit. This is what gives you the right to come into their unit. And if anybody says you don't have the right to come into my unit, you turn the property manager and say, listen, I want in that unit. I don't care how you do it, but I'm not leaving until I see that unit. If I don't see that unit, I'm not buying this property. And the property manager will tell this guy, listen, if you don't allow us in there, we will evict you. And they can, because the lease contract says that the landlord can go in with 24-hour notice. Every state has, virtually every state has this rule. Might be 48 hours. You got to know your particular area. But if you give notice, the lease contract and the law says that the landlord can go in there. The landlord has to go in there. He has to be able to check. You go to a particular unit and the tenant has changed the locks. Tell the landlord, drill that lock. I want to see inside that unit. Well, I can't drill it. Drill a lock or I'm not buying this property. They will drill the lock. Not only should they drill the lock and tell the tenant to stop by the office and pick up their new keys, but the tenant is not supposed to change the locks without giving a copy to the landlord. So the landlord has every right to drill out the lock on that particular property, on that particular unit. You must get in there and look at every single unit. 100% you have to go into every single unit. Now think about this for a second, people. I had one guy that said, well, I couldn't get into, it was like a 20-unit property. Well, he didn't have keys for these 5 units, so I didn't go inside of them. I'm like, oh, really? What's the cost per unit that you're buying these properties for? I'm paying about $55,000 per unit. You are paying $55,000 per unit, sight unseen. You are going to go out there and buy a car for $55,000 without even looking at it. Forget the test drive. You don't even know if it exists. Would you do that? No, you wouldn't. So don't go on a property without looking at every single unit. Think about every one of those units as being $30,000 out of your pocket. And you're not even looking at every single one of them. No, you are looking at every single unit. Have I made myself clear? I do believe I have. Okay, so what are you looking for in each unit? What is it you're trying to accomplish when you go on these properties? Let me tell you, folks, this is where you are different than the property inspector. And here's the answer. If I were to own this property today, close on this property today, and these tenants moved out tomorrow, how much is it going to cost me? How much is it going to cost me? That is what you need to think about every time you walk into one of these units. Because the property inspector is going to go around with his little unit condition form, which we're going to go through. That's going to be handout, I believe it's handout number 1. We're going to go over in just a moment, so make sure you have that handy. But the physical inspector is going to go through and just check off all the boxes on the unit condition form. And at the end of the day, he's going to hand it to you and say, well, here's what we came up with. This is what it looks like. You're like, okay, great, but if these people moved out tomorrow, what's it going to cost me? And he can't answer that question because he doesn't know what it takes to run a property like a business. And that's what you have to think about. So what you're going to do when you walk into these properties is you're going to smell. The first thing you do when you stand at that door is you take a big, deep breath of the air that's inside. And you're going to smell predominantly two things. You're going to smell mold. And if you don't know what mold smells like, start walking through apartments. You'll get the hang of what mold smells like. And when you get good at it, you can stand at that door and smell mold. And mold is what's going to kill that unit. Water kills property. So if you smell mold, you got to go in there and find out where it is. It could be in the water. In the windows. It could be in the ceilings. It could be underneath the kitchen sink. It could be in the bathroom. Find that mold and figure out why that is. Because you know what? If you own this property today and these people moved out, you're not going to be able to rent that unit. That's not an easy turn. That's going to cost you a lot of money. And this is what the property inspector is not going to tell you. So this is why you want to go through every single unit. All right. The second thing that you're going to smell are pets. Okay. So what? Well, yeah, it is kind of a so what. But remember, what we're going to do at the end of the day is we're going to put all our information together. And we're going to make sure that the information is accurate. So if I go in there and I smell a pet, I'm going to make sure that when I get back to my friend, my partner who's sitting back in the leasing office going through all the leases, we're going to make sure that unit 1A is paying a pet fee and a pet deposit. And we're going to see that on the lease. And we're just checking. We're just making sure. So when I walk in there, I smell for mold and I smell for pets. All right. Now, next thing is I sight. I'm going to look around. I'm going to look up in the corners of the ceilings where water goes. I'm going to look for water stains up in the corners of ceilings, all along the edges. I'm going to look for water stains on the ceilings. And then I'm going to go into every closet and I'm going to look for water stains. And then I'm going to look around the kitchen, and we're going to get through this in just a moment in the unit condition report. But I'm going to look around to make sure that everything is there. Are the appliances working correctly? I'm going to turn on all the appliances. I'm going to turn I'm going to turn the heat on. I'm going to turn the AC on. I'm going to turn all the burners on the stove on. I'm going to turn the oven on. I'm going to turn the water on. I'm going to turn everything on to make sure it works. And I'm especially going to turn on the hot water so I know they got hot water and the hot water is working correctly. So these are the things you're going to do with the site. Now, the touch. You're going to look for water. And the easiest way to look for water is to look underneath the sinks, underneath the kitchen sinks, underneath the bathroom sinks. And a lot of times people have those vanities jammed to the hilt. Well, if they do have them jammed to the hilt, you're not going to rip them apart. And typically, if there's no water leaking, they're keeping their stuff in there. It's not going to get bad. But then what you're going to do about the touch is you're going to start to walk around the toilets. You're going to put your feet right around the base of the toilet and stamp your feet. And you're going to feel them to see if you feel any soft wood. Because if the wood is rotting, it's getting soft. It's because the water is destroying the wood. So you're going to put your feet right around the toilets and right up along the base of the tub. And that's where you're going to feel if the subfloor is going bad and you're going to have to replace it. Remember, this is not something that the property inspector is going to tell you. He's going to, oh yeah, well, it has this in this place. But if they moved out tomorrow, what's it going to cost me to turn this unit? That's what I really want to know. Now, the next sensation is roll. Yeah, this is kind of my play on words here, guys. What I really mean by that is the rent roll. Because what you need to do, remember, up to this point, the only information that we have received about this particular unit, about this particular tenant, has been on the rent roll that was sent to us under the Schedule 1 requirements 2 weeks ago. So now this is our chance to verify what's on the lease, what's on the rent roll, and what's in the unit. So the first thing we want to do is to make sure that the tenant that is on the lease is the same one that's in the unit. How do you do that? Well, you ask them what their name is if they're there. If they're not there, you look for mail on the kitchen counter, and you match up the name on the mail with the name that's on the lease. And if there's a dispute, like, hey, wait a minute, who are these people? Oh, well, yeah, that's one of the roommates. Okay, so the roommate lives here too. Yep, there's a roommate. Okay, great. So that way you know that when you go back to your partner who's doing the lease audit, you check to make sure that the roommate is listed on the lease. If the roommate is over 18 years, if anyone over 18 years of age living in that unit, they have to be on the lease. I'll explain why that is in a moment. But just remember that. And that's what you're doing when you go through these units, is you're starting to verify the information that's on the rent roll. Now, how many registered tenants? Well, according to the rent roll, there are only 2. Yeah, but there are 6 beds. I'm counting 6 mattresses. And believe me, I've seen more than 6 in some of these 2 bedrooms. Some of these places are used just as a place to sleep by, migrant workers. And they just come there, they sleep, and they move out. So you have to make sure that everybody over 18 is on that lease. Now, if you've got 6 beds in there in a 2-bedroom, you can't. They have to be evicted. So if you purchase this property one day, you're going to lose that tenant the next day, because you cannot, by the Board of Health, you cannot have more than 4 people in a 4-bedroom, in a 2-bedroom property. You can't have 6 people. So they have to move out. And they were supposed to notify you of who's supposed to be on that lease. That's grounds for eviction. Folks, you think about it the other way, is if you're paying their utilities, or you're paying the water and the sewer on that property, and you're qualified as a 2-bedroom with 4 units, and they got 6 to 8 people living there, they're killing your utility bill. You think you're making $800 a month rent on this? You're not, because your utilities are going through the roof because your usage is up, because you got more people living in that property than should be on there. So this is the type of thing you need to be looking for when you're doing that unit inspection report. All right. What if the unit have tenants in them? Do we have the right to go in each unit? Yes, here's why you have the right to go into these units. In everyone's lease, it says that with a 24-hour notice, and I say everyone, I speak in absolutes, and as an attorney, I shouldn't speak in absolutes, but in the majority of jurisdictions, it's a 24-hour notice clause. And in the lease, it says to the tenant, if the landlord gives you 24 hours notice, you have to let them into the unit. If you don't, that's grounds for eviction, and you can be evicted. So that gives you the legal right to do that. That's a statute that is then codified within the lease. Now, in your purchase and sale agreement, you state to the seller, I want to get inside every single one of these units, so you, as a condition of this contract, will notify all of your tenants of a 24-hour notice clause, right? So that's how you get into these properties legally, into every single unit. And I'm telling you, folks, I've done it. I've been in over 3,000 apartment units. And I can tell you that there's always someone who doesn't want you in their unit. And the answer is, you look them straight in the eye and you say, I don't care. I'm getting in your unit. You got 24 hours to let me in your unit. The owner will make sure that you get into that unit. You have to. You're not going to write a check for $30,000 per unit if you're not going to even be able to see one of those units. And the tenant doesn't have the right to say no. They don't. They just do not have that right. Okay. Now, let's see. How many registered tenants? Now, pets. We talked about the pets. Are the pets on the rent roll? Pet deposit, pet fee. Does it meet the, what type of pet is it that's on there? Because remember, certain types of pets are not allowed in apartment units. Basically, pit bulls, Dobermans, that type of thing, are typically not allowed on a property. If the dog is over 35 pounds, it's not allowed on the property. That type of thing. You can have those types of requirements on your pets. And so if you have a pet in there that's not listed on the lease, you're going to whack them for the pet fee, you're going to whack them for the pet deposit, and then you're going to make sure that the pet meets the requirements of the property. All right? Now, what else do we have? Now, the other thing is, how long has a person been on the lease? You got some people in there that have lived in these units for years. They're not annual tenants. They've lived there for 6 years. And you walk through their unit and the carpet is gone. And you say, hey, yeah, you've been living here a while. You want us to replace the carpet? You got some people, I'll tell you, it blows my mind. They'll say, no, this one's fine. Really? Because this one's, it's kind of beyond its useful life. We'll be more than willing at your next renewal to replace your carpet. No, that mean I have to move stuff? Yeah. No, I don't want to move anything. No, we'll just keep it the way it is. Oh, okay, fine, thanks. All right, just let us know if there's anything we can do. Oh, okay. So you get some people that have lived there for a long time and they need to, you think they need to have something done to the unit. They just want to keep everything the way it is. Hey, all right, fine. If that's where you want to be, doesn't cost me anything. This guy's saying. Now, if you got some people that have only been there for 6 months and you look at the place and they've trashed it, and look at the carpet, you're like, holy crap, you've been here for 6 months and we got you a new carpet 6 months ago and this is what it looks like now? You move out tomorrow, I got to replace this carpet. This guy's the worst tenant in the world. And you start to think about it from a business standpoint. Should I replace it with those, the fake new hard flooring, or should I put in, high quality carpet, or what should I do? These are the types of things you think about when you're looking at these units. All right. How much time should you allocate to inspect inside based on the number of units, beds, any guidelines? Okay. How long should it take you to go through a unit? Guys, listen to this. When you get good, and I'll tell you, you'll get good after about 20 units. It'll take you no more than 8 minutes to go through a unit. 1 bedroom's even shorter. Typical 2 bedrooms, 8 minutes. You stand at the door, you go through that place like a white tornado. You know exactly what you have to do. You get it done and you get out of there. And the way we were doing it when we really had it going is they would open up a unit for me, and as I go right through the door, they're knocking on the door of the next tenant. So it just keeps flowing. I finish one, I move right into the next one. And I can tell you, we did a 182 unit apartment complex in just under a day. 2 of us did. Went through every single unit. 40 unit property, cake, nothing. I can have that done before lunchtime. So you get so good at this because you know exactly what you're looking for. And the thing is, you've seen one unit, you've seen them all. They all start to look exactly the same. So that's typically how you do it. It's factory work. You're going to go through this thing. They all look the same. You don't have to spend much time in the units. Remember what I'm telling you you're looking for. You're not going to go in there and start measuring for drapes. You're just getting in there to find out, if I own this property tomorrow, what's it going to cost me if these people moved out next day? That's what you really are looking for as far as the quality, of what's going to cost you from a return standpoint. Now, if you take notes, you take pictures of the problems. You take notes of the problems. You don't take any notes of every single thing. And I'm going to go through the unit condition report with you in just a moment. But you're only going to keep records of things that are problems, because you're going to use that information against the seller. So you want to have that documentation with you when you go to present your case as to why you need to come off the price, or why you need more money, or why you need a repair allowance. You're going to keep that information to build your case. So yes, you are going to take pictures of the problems, and you're going to keep a report of the problems. So, all right, let me see. What else we got? Okay, so let's get a little bit more specific. Let's take a look at the unit condition form. All right. Now, this unit condition form is just your standard form. As you can see, it lists everything on here: the kitchens, the living rooms, the dining rooms, the bathrooms, bedroom number 1, bedroom number 2, bedroom number 3, the systems, the appliances, the make and model. Okay, here's what you're going to do when you walk into a unit. Remember, you're going to see them all. So there are going to be 4 types of units that you're going to see. The first type are occupied units. How do you know they're occupied? Well, people live there. They're sitting right there. They greet me when I come to the door. The place is clean. There's furniture. There's laundry in the washing machine. That's an occupied unit. The next type of unit is a vacant unit. How do I know it's vacant? Because even the manager tells me it's vacant. They have it on the rent roll as being vacant. When we walk into it, it's vacant. There's nothing in there. As a matter of fact, this unit is rent ready. Okay, now rent ready units means that somebody can walk in that day and lease it for tomorrow. That's a rent ready unit. Not all vacant units are rent ready. The next type of units that you're going to walk into are down units. These are units that are trashed, that need more than $3,000 worth of work on them in order to bring them up to rent-ready quality. All right. Now, remember what we did way back in the first lesson when we were drafting the purchase and sale agreement? We said in one of the provisions that all units at the closing table must be rent ready, or you're going to pay us some money. So the property is, if the unit is down, we're going to make note. This is a down unit. This is going to cost us $6,000 at the closing table. This unit has to be, you have to kick back $6,000 to us to get this unit rent ready. Or do it now, Mr. Seller. But we want every single unit in the property to be rent ready, because that way we are able to rent 100% of the units and generate as much revenue as we possibly can on day one. All right, so if that unit is down, the purchase and sale agreement says, hey, this can't be down, or you have to give us money. So that's a third type of unit. Now the fourth type of unit is the tricky one. And this is where the seller tries to screw you. It's called a skipped unit. That means the tenant skipped. They're gone. They're not paying rent. They didn't tell the tenant, the landlord, that they had left. In the dark of night, they threw all of their clothing in trash bags, and they left. And you walk in there, and you look around, and you think to yourself, this is kind of weird. Like, trash looks like it hasn't been cleaned up in a while, and there's really not much furniture in this place, but you got stuff strewn all over the place. And you look at the manager and say, what's going on with this unit? Oh, no, I guess they're just not good housekeepers. Oh, really? Okay. And you see what they're doing is they're not disclosing to you that this is no longer a revenue creating unit. The manager and the property owner, they don't want you to know that, because that's going to drive down the occupancy, and that's going to be a problem for the bank when you need to show a certain level of occupancy. And so what happens is they let this one sit vacant, but it shows up on the rent rolls being occupied. And so it ends up becoming your problem, because then you've got to go in there and you've got to find out, hey, why isn't the guy paying? Oh, he moved out. Wait a minute, he moved out? I inspected this property 60 days ago. Yeah, he moved out then. Just didn't want to tell you. So now you have to go in there and you have to trash out that unit. You've got to get it rent ready, and you've got to lease it up. And it all becomes your problem, because the landlord the owner didn't want to know that this person had skipped. Folks, this happens all the time. All the time. And you've got to keep your eye on it. Now, here's the deal. Remember how we said that there's a 30-day property inspection period. Now, that 30-day property inspection period just really goes to you getting everything in line and determining whether you're going to move forward with the deal or not, and determining whether, if we go beyond this inspection period, your earnest money becomes conditionally hard. Now, what it didn't say was that you're able to inspect this property right up until the closing date. You see, you can walk in and take a look at the property, but you can't go on there and walk away with your earnest money. Earnest money goes hard, but you can still, right up until the closing date, go back and inspect any unit you want to. That's the way I've drafted my purchase and sale contracts, so that right up until the day before, you can go into and say, hey, I want to see unit 201. Go on, let's go knock on the door. Well, we didn't give them notice. That's okay. Let's go knock on the door, see if they'll let us in. And if you think the property was a skipped unit back then, it's still a skipped unit today, the day before the closing. So you're going to walk in there and say, hey, these people have moved. This isn't rent ready. I want all these units to be rent ready. Nobody has done anything to this unit in the last 2 months. This was a skipped unit. This is a down unit. You need to pay me at the closing table. So that's how you control this process. All right. So those are the 4 types of units that you're going to deal with when going through these particular units. And you're going to do a follow-up inspection. Now, you're going to use these unit condition forms. Really, you don't have to do one. I remember my first time doing it, I filled out one for every single unit, and I went through, checked the windows and checked this. Like, no. You don't do that. If the window is broken, if there's a crack in the window, if it's a double pane window and it's letting moisture in, you make a note of that. That window needs to be replaced. But if there isn't, you're not going to check that it's okay. So you only use these unit condition forms for problems. All right? Does everybody get that? That is handout number 1 complete. Let me take a swig of my elixir of life here and killer properties. How's it going? Is everybody taking copious notes? Everybody's getting the hang of this? Everybody getting a feel for what goes on these properties? All right. What's the most important job? What's the most important job in the physical inspection process? It's right now, it's the only job we haven't gone over yet. And it's the person who's doing the lease audit. The lease auditor, the person who has been sitting in that office while you're going through every single unit, and your partner is sitting in the office going through every single file on every single unit. That person is the one who's got the most important job in this whole entire process. Remember, it's all about the contracts. At the end of the day, that's really what you're buying. You are buying contracts. Okay? You're not buying property, you're buying contracts. See, because without those contracts, this property is worthless. And the only reason why we have these contracts, obviously, is because of the property, but because we're able to provide them with a service. And it's because we've negotiated a deal with these people that they're going to be paying us a certain amount of money every single month, technically guaranteed. I mean, under the contract, they have to do this as long as we provide them with that product, which is the unit. So it's all about the contracts. So let's take a look at handout number 2. Now, this is what you're going to be doing when you're sitting in the office. The handout number 2 is now for some reason it was coming off upside down. I thought I had tried to fix that, but I'm looking at it right now. This is a sample of a lease audit form. You do this form for every single tenant. Okay, now let's go through this particular form line by line, and you'll see exactly what I look for in all of these. Obviously, apartment name, and we're going to have one of these for every single apartment number. Apartment number. You're going to have the resident's name, and then it's going to list any other occupants. Now, if anyone is over 18, they have to be listed on the lease. Now, what's happening is you're sitting there and you see Samuel Robinson, and there's no one else on the lease. And then when your partner comes in from his unit inspection, you say, hey, unit 309, how many people were living there? Oh, there were 3 beds. Huh. Okay, maybe there are kids and they're under 18. Oh, no, there are no kids living in this apartment. There were 2 other tents in there. And so you say, okay, wait a minute, but Samuel Robinson is the only one listed on this lease, but he's letting 2 other people live in this property. And you might think to yourself right now, as a potential owner of this property, well, why is that such a bad thing? And Sam Robinson is trying to split the lease. He wants to make sure that he's able to pay me, so he brings in some other tenants. Well, let me just tell you, folks, when Samuel Robinson signed up for this thing, I did a complete background check on him. I haven't done a background check on his two friends. His two friends who he met when he was in the pen. And these two friends who are both sex offenders who are now living in that unit. Now remember, they didn't come to me and register. I don't know they live there, but you know who they did register with? The Sex Registry Board. And now these guys are listed in Sex Registry Board as living on my property. And I didn't even look. I didn't even have the opportunity to kick them out. And folks, that's how registered sex offenders get places to live. They shack up with other people. And that becomes your problem. And now you got listed in the sex registry that your address is listed as one that has a sex offender. Nothing, it's only second to water that can kill a property faster than a sex offender. So you can get rid of these people. This is why you get a background check, criminal and credit background check on every single person that's in your property. All right? So that's why we want to know who else lives there. Now let's take a look at the next thing. Rent amount. Look at the difference here. The rent roll, the roll that we had when we were sitting in the office back at home, said Sam Robinson was paying $500. But his lease says that he's paying $510. Well, what's he paying? Is he paying the $500 or is he paying the $510? Now granted, it's just a technical glitch in the system, but we need to get fixed, because if we have too many of these things, it drastically impacts the net operating income. And we might look at this at the end of the day and say, there's too much of a variance here. This property is not worth what we said it was, because their record keeping is so sloppy. Now, the other thing is you're going to look at the lease term dates. You want to know when this person moved in and when they're moving out. You're going to want to know this for a couple of different reasons. The first off is you want to make sure that no more than approximately 8% of your tenant base renews on any particular month. So if you see them all congregating around July, and July is going to be a terrible month because 20% of your property is going to renew in July, you're going to start offering 13, 14, 15-month contracts so that you can spread out that risk over a different period of time. So that's why one of the reasons why you look at the lease term dates. The other reason why you look at the lease term dates is because you want to know how long people have lived there. Has 20% of your population started leasing there in the last 6 months? They haven't even hit the first year yet. The previous owner just went through a massive lease up, and he may not have done a good background check on these people. You want to buy a property where the customers are good long-term customers, not that have just gone through a massive lease up. Security deposit. You want to make sure that what it says on the rent roll, the security deposit, is exactly what it says on the lease, because the only thing that governs here is a lease. And if there's a difference, you got to get that figured out and get it fixed on the rent roll, because at the end of the day, when you go to close on this property, the title insurance company, when they go to figure out who owes what at the end of the day, they're not going to look at the leases, they're going to look at the rent roll. So you got to make sure that the lease amount, the security deposit amount that's on the rent roll matches exactly what it says on the leases, so that at the title insurance company at the closing table gives you the right amount of money. Same with pet deposits. Utilities. Who's paying utilities? You got to understand that as well. Now, look at right below here. We start getting into the credit reports, the criminal reports, the income verification, the rental verification. What does this mean? Credit report. That's very simple. Very simple. When you sign up a property, you're going to sign up with a credit agency that goes out and does a credit report on these people. Now, they don't deny people the ability to rent. They just use standard criteria that you help them devise once, and then you forget about it, so that when they come in there, if their credit is bad, you charge them more on a security deposit, and that's why you'll see all different amounts for the security deposit, and then they move in, and then they start paying the rent. So that's on the credit. The credit is easy because it's all based upon the Social Security number. The criminal is different, because the criminal background check, you're dealing with thousands of criminal or police jurisdictions all over the country. They all do things differently. It's not based upon the Social Security number. I had one with a guy. I looked at it and I said, "This guy's a sex offender." She says, "No, it isn't. He isn't. I said, look right here. I found him right on the system. No, that's the guy by the same name, but look at. And this is why they take your photocopy of your driver's license so they can match up. The sex offender was a 4 foot tall, 5 foot tall guy, and the guy applying for the lease was a 6 foot tall black guy. Well, okay, so I guess the names are the same, but the crime is different. We almost didn't rent to the guy because he fit this profile, but that's why the criminal background check, that's why we take pictures of the guys so that we know of the potential tenants, so we know who it is actually trying to rent, and does that match up with what the crime information is. Now, the income verification. Think about this for a second. We want to go back and we want to find out how much money this guy makes. This goes to the who is it? It's the broker. The broker sold us this property, telling us that there's a huge value play. The rents are too low. The rent can be moved up. And so this property, you'll be able to take advantage of an increase in the income on the property because you'll be able to push the rents. And then you go to do your background check here, your income verification report, and you say, these people that are living here can't afford any more rent. So this whole concept of a value play by increasing the rents is going to fall flat. It's going to take me years. I have to move everybody out and move in all new tenants because these people can't afford to live here in the first place. So you go back to the broker and say, listen, this deal is not what you made it out to be. It's going to cost a lot more for us to do what you said was going to be possible in this property. So therefore, we're going to need to change our terms. You use this information against the broker. Now, the other thing that I want to talk to you about before we move on, and this is key, and this kind of goes to our discussion of people skipping. Phantom leases. Folks, this happened to me. If the landlord owns other property in the area and he goes through and he says, I'm going to make it look like there are more people living in this property because I'm going to take leases from this other property that I own, white out the names, white out the property name, put in this property name, and I'm going to stick it in there and say, yeah, this tenant lives here, and there's his information. And you are sitting there doing the leasing audit, and you look at this. I'm telling you, folks, if they want to screw you over, they can. And you don't find out about it until after you've purchased the property. You've got to be very, very careful. And you've got to always be asking yourself the question, how is this guy trying to screw me? And you've got to make sure that those leases are valid. Check for patterns in the leases. Does it look like they're using whiteout in the leases? Does it look like whiteout is being copied over? Are those blank lines on those lease forms, are part of the blank lines whited over because they've whited something out? I mean, remember, you were a forensic accountant last week. Now you're still that forensic accountant. You're trying to figure out what's going on this property and why are these leases look a little bit different than these other leases. I'm telling you, you've got to be very, very, very careful about this stuff. So as I said, this lease auditor has the most important job in the whole process. And you've got to give it the weight it is entitled to. All right? I just totally scared all of you away. Okay, now, you finish the lease audits. Your partner comes in and they've done all the units. And you sit down and your day is done. I can tell you the first thing you're going to want to do is get back to that hotel and shower, especially the guy who went in all of those units. That's a gross job. And they're going to want to wipe that filth off of them. But your day is done. Now what's going to happen? Now you go home, package up everything, take all the information that you put together, and you head on home because you still have a lot of work to do. It took you one day to do the physical inspection. One day, that's all it takes. And remember, we got 2 weeks left in this process, and you just used up one of those days. Now you got to get home and figure out what you're going to do with this particular deal. Okay, so it's time to regroup. Let's take a look. You're going to take the unit inspection info, the lease audit info, and any CapEx info, and you're going to put it all together. Now you might be saying, wait, we didn't even talk about CapEx. Well, we kind of did when we talked about like the parking lots and things like that. The property inspector who's outside taking a look at the roofs and the foundation, he might come up with some information that talks about CapEx. So we're taking all of this information together and we're going to put it all together. We're going to sit back down at our conference table / dining room table / kitchen table, and we're going to start to look at this deal for the final time. All right. Now, you've got to ask yourself the question, has the review of the leases changed net operating income? Remember, we talked about skipped units. There's no money coming in. We talked about the rents being off from the rent roll, the lease units numbers being off from the rent roll. All of these things we put back together into our spreadsheet, and we come up with a new net operating income. And now, has the review of those leases changed the NOI? What has the lease audit done to your understanding of the quality of the customers? Well, I thought I was buying a B-class property, but these tenants are solid C. This is not the property I signed up for. I don't like this deal anymore. This is not the type of property I'm looking to build my portfolio on. Oh, but it's a great deal. Yeah, but it really isn't, because you told me it was this, and now I'm finding out that it's something entirely different. So what is the extent of the rehab costs on the deal? You know, what's it going to cost me to turn units when I have to kick these people out because they're going to need to be evicted? They haven't paid. What are my capital expenditures? Look at the parking lot. It looks terrible. Look at the the report I got back from my property inspector on the roofs, on the external staircases. I mean, there's so much more here that we never even talked about. Remember, this capital expenditure. This is what the other inspector was doing while you were going out looking in all the individual units. So, what do you do now? What do you do now? 3 things. You can buy the property. You can come away from all and say, this property is pristine. I am buying this property. You can kill the deal, or you can revalue it. Now remember, I said revalue the property. I didn't say retrade. I said revalue, because that's really what you're doing. This property does not meet the value that the broker and the seller originally put on it once you started looking under the covers here. And that is what you're entitled to do as the buyer. Let's take a look at options for revaluing it. What can we do to make this deal work for us? After all that we've been through, it's not working. What are our options now? We can drop the price. We can reduce the price. Everybody knows that one. We can add a repair allowance. Now remember, those of you that have watched my video on drafting of the letters of intent, the thing that I always say in there is that you never ask for a repair allowance in the letter of intent stage. And now I think you understand why I say that. Because look how far we have come. And look at the point we're in right now. And now we've got to go back and revalue this deal. And if we asked for a repair allowance, 60 days ago, when we first got started, we would have no idea whether that was the right number or not based upon all that we've just gone through. So now is the time to go back to the seller with all of your evidence, with your pictures, with your unit condition reports, and you say to the seller, hey, you got to give me some money. Because not only are these units bad and what have you, but there are 6 of them that are down. And according to our purchase and sale agreement, you got to put in $6,000 for every down unit. So I'm going to need this $36,000 right there at the closing table just for you to comply with the contract. I mean, see, you're now in a much better position to tell the seller what you want versus back on day one when you're drafting your letter of intent, you've never even seen the property before. So that's why I always say don't put a repair allowance in your initial LOI. This is the time you want to do it. All right, rent guarantees. Hey, these tenants look at half of your revenue comes in the second half of the month. These people are broke. I need some more guarantees or more assurances that these people are going to be good tenants. I would like to make an offer, revise my offer, and put in a rental guarantee so that I'm protected and that you're actually giving me a property that is good. Now, folks, you don't see this very often. I've done it and I've got it and I've made a boatload on it. But just be creative. Figure out what it is about this property that you don't like and think of creative ways to come up with solutions to make you feel better about it. In some cases, it might be a rent guarantee. Other cases, it might be a repair allowance. Other cases, we might have to drop the price. All right? Change the time frames. I can't close in 30 days. As a matter of fact, once we got through this property, one of my investors walked. He said, this is not what you told me it was. And he was right. I can't blame him. And so I just lost one of my biggest backers. I went back out and find some other backers, so I can't close in this time frame. This property is not what you made it out to be. I'd still like to buy it. I still think we can make it happen. But I'm going to need more time to find investors, because now I'm looking for investors who are looking for problem properties. So that's the type of thing that you want to talk about as ways that you can revalue the deal. It's making sense to all of you? Okay, remember, this is my favorite saying. No deal ever got any worse when you walk away from it. Remember? No deal ever got any worse when you walked away from it. And so don't be afraid to kill the deal. Don't be afraid, like, oh, I've just spent all this time. I just spent a airline ticket, and I just spent a hotel room. Listen, that's the short money. If you have to do a deal to recoup your plane flight ticket, this is not the right business for you. That type of thing is the cost of doing business. You do one deal and you've just paid for a hell of a lot of airplane flights. But don't be forced into doing a deal because you need that acquisition fee. That's not why you want to do a deal. You want to do a deal because it's the right deal under the right terms, under the right conditions, and it meets your investment criteria. That's the type of deal you want to be doing. So let's take a quick look at handout number 3. Now, handout number 3, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. There's a lot here. This is a great document, and it's an Excel document. So what you're going to be looking at is down the bottom, there are tabs, and some of the lines in the first tab reference the other tabs. So you can see that all ties together. But this is a deal checklist. This is going to show you what you need to do every step of the way through the transaction. I mean, it gets down into the absolute nitty-gritty of everything. It tells you who the person responsible for it, when it's due, when it's completed, and the status of it. We get into the due diligence phase, the private money financing phase, the purchase and sale agreement, the bank financing, the property management. This is everything that you need. We put this together after a couple of our deals when we said we need a master cheat sheet or master list that goes through every single transaction process and make sure that we have somebody assigned to it. We know what's going on, because I'll tell you folks, you've got a very limited time to get all this information done. So you want to do it in a systematic way so that you get it done correctly. And it's all about systems. You're running a business now, and businesses are all about creating systems that work for you, not that make you have to work. So make sure that you understand this, this particular due diligence deal checklist, and use it, change it, make it work for you. But this is really great stuff. Take your time to look at it. So this is the end. This is it. This is the end of my class. This has been fantastic. This is typically a 2-day seminar that I do in a hotel function room somewhere around the country. I'm so glad that you've all been patient with me. I think you agree that this type of thing can be done over a successive period of time. And as always, you all know how to get a hold of me. Send me an email if you have any questions. This video is going to be up shortly, and then eventually, just so all of you know, you're all the inaugural group of people, but this group will be locked down. You will not be able to get access to the videos once we fix the glitch with the membership site, you all will have a username and password to get in to view it, but at some point you will not be able to access it the same way you have been. You will have to get in using a username and password. So if anybody has any questions before we end it, please type them in there and let me know. Oh, good. I appreciate that. This has been great. Here's where my applause line comes in. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Vance. So everybody, have a great rest of the day. If you have any questions about anything, please don't hesitate to contact me, but I've really enjoyed talking to you about this stuff, and I will see you soon. And everybody, just remember, big announcement coming out tomorrow or on Monday from MFIA that I think many of you in the owner forum, the masterclass program, will really, really enjoy. So great talking with you. I'll talk to you soon.